more than a decade, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show with the handsome man himself, Dave Manouk. I'm your host, Drew Mindell, here for the next couple of hours. Oh, good. Ginsburg's in the chat, but yet he's not on the show. That makes a lot of sense. Here for the next couple of hours to talk about the Winnipeg Jets. We're getting you set. It's another Winnipeg Jets Saturday night game day. We're getting you set for the Jets and the Montreal Canadiens a little bit later on tonight from La Belle Provence. It's going to be the Jets and the Habs doing battle shortly after 6 p.m. puck drop, which means you got to keep it locked to Illegal Curve and illegalcurve.com all day long for all your latest Winnipeg Jets news and audio. And then, of course, we wrap it tonight later on after the Jets and the Habs with the Illegal Curve post-game show right around 9 o'clock, give or take a couple minutes on either side there. We're going to recap everything that goes on between these two fine hockey teams. Dave M., good to see you on this Saturday morning. How are things in your world?
Things are going well, Drew. Things are going well. Just getting ready for a big game day. Jets and Moose both wrapping up their quick 2-game road trips. Moose, of course, are in Texas, where they started things off with a little comeback victory. And now, of course, the Jets are going to see if they can extend their winning streak to 4 games. So exciting times for the NHL and AHL clubs of Winnipeg.
Indeed, it will be. It's been a good week for the Winnipeg Jets thus far, and they were in the need of a good week. A bit of a meandering start, I would say, to the season, but this has been thus far since last Saturday, where they come back to beat the Edmonton Oilers, and then, of course, a relatively convincing victory on Tuesday night, and then following that up with another one on Thursday night, albeit, they may have been hemmed in their own zone a fair bit. It's been a good week for the Winnipeg Jets. Anytime you can go 3-0, with 2 of those 3 wins being in regulation time, then that's certainly a good week. And you know that they want to ice it with a victory in Montreal tonight to really make it a tremendous week. Anytime you can go a full 7 days in the NHL calendar without a loss and with victories, it's certainly a good one and a feather in the cap. And you know what they say in the NHL, playoff teams win 3 games in a row relatively frequently, and then they don't lose 3 games in a row, on the flip side of that. And so far, the Jets haven't lost 3 in a row. They've won 3 in a row now, and they look to make it 4 in a row later on tonight.
Yeah, Andrew, look, as we talked about, even when they were 1-3, the team was still playing relatively well. They've just had some, situations, right? The LA game, they played the first period really well. Then they took 2 periods off, which of course you can't do in the NHL.
Right.
And then in some other instances, like in the Vegas game, they were in it against a team that was undefeated at the time. And then they had a late brain fart and end up costing themselves at least 1, maybe 2 points. So look, there's been more good than bad, I'd say, from this hockey club. And it's funny because one of the headlines today in the morning papers was, I want to get the exact quote, but it was like, what a difference a week can make. Mm-hmm. And I said, like, it's funny how you don't end a season based on the first few games of the season. You also don't plan the parade based on, the first few days of the season. So, I mean, it's important for Jets fans to, look at what this team has been able to do overall, right? You've lost Gabe Vilardi. And you've continued to, you've won the games when you lost the guy who was going to be your number 1 right winger. And suddenly you haven't kind of missed a beat. You have Alex Iafallo, obviously it was Mason Appleton originally. And look at how well Mason Appleton is doing in that role that he's currently had. And we talked about it after the game on Thursday night, Drew, but who expected Mason Appleton to already have 3 goals in 7 games when he had 5 in 41 last year? So when you're getting some depth scoring, and overall your team is playing well, and most importantly, and it's always going to be most importantly with the Winnipeg Jets, Connor Hellebuyck is Connor Hellebuyck again. And if you look at the way, and it's one thing I was thinking about, Drew, if you look at the way this schedule works out for Winnipeg, it's a really easy schedule in the sense that I don't mean necessarily the teams they're playing, but the way it's laid out. They don't have back-to-backs. They don't have a lot of games consecutively, and even in 2 or 3 day blocks. So they'll play tonight. then they don't play again until Monday, then they don't play again until Thursday. So it's kind of spaced out well for them. And yeah, you're right, Drew. This team definitely wants to go into Montreal and pick up another victory and really kind of put a little, because they got lucky, right? In the sense that the other Central teams started to slide on Thursday night. Every Central team had an L in the column, with the exception of St. Louis, who I believe had a comeback win against the Oilers. So, or maybe not a comeback
Flames.
win.
Sorry, the Flames. They shut out the Flames in Calgary. The Flames were booed off the ice, if I recall correctly.
No, they did it to both teams. They shut out the Oilers and they shut out the Flames. But I think you're right. I think it was the Flames first, then it was the Oilers on Saturday night. Joel Hofer, the Winnipegger, I think got his first shutout of his career, because
you're talking about last Saturday. No, it couldn't have been Saturday night, because the Jets and the Oilers played on Saturday night. Doesn't matter. The point is
no. Well, no,
Tuesday night and Thursday night. Maybe Tuesday night they beat the Oilers, and Thursday night they beat the Flames.
Yeah, and I was going to say Joel Hofer or Hofer.
I think it's Hofer.
I think it's Hofer too, but we'll see. But anyways, the point is, Jets fans will remember, didn't get credited with a shutout against Winnipeg last year when St. Louis was, I think, in Winnipeg, because he had an equipment issue, if you recall.
That's right.
So I don't remember it was probably Binnington, came in and played a few minutes, and then Hofer went back into the net. And of course, he was not, even though they shut out the Jets, they didn't get credit. He didn't get credit. So that was his first career shutout, I believe, against either Calgary or Edmonton. But regardless, St. Louis was, well, no, it must have been Thursday night. Whoever St. Louis beat, they beat them on Thursday night, because they were the only other. Yeah, they was the only other Central team that had won a game that evening. So the Jets have put themselves in a position where they're now back into third place. And again, like I said, I promise people I will not scoreboard watch or standings watch. But again, we've talked about it. I remember a lot last year is that it's so important to bank points early in the season. So you're not doing the chase up game and trying to, again, what the Jets had to do, even though they banked a lot of points to January of 2023, sorry. But that's one of the things you want to be able to do. And so it's good for the Jets that even though you played well and you felt good about your team overall, 1-3 is still 1-3, and that you are who your record says you are. Now you're 4-3 and you're feeling a little bit better. And again, if you can come back home for the big Blake Wheeler game on Monday, 5-3, that is going to really hold you in a good stead.
Yeah, by the sounds of things, at least this is what I read in Mike and Ken's column, their whip around the league or whatever they call it.
Dump and chase.
Dump and chase. Thank you. They dump and chase in, I think it was today's Free Press. At least I read it online. So I presume it's in the hard copy of the Free
Mike,
Press.
unfortunately for him, remains dump, and Kenny is now chase.
Yes, that's an unfortunate turn of events there for Mike McIntyre. I didn't get my hard copy of the Free Press today. Remind me to send an email later on about having not received that. But the point is, it sounds like Laurent Brossoit going to get the start tonight for the Winnipeg Jets. So, which is fine. I mean, you have to get him starts, and you have to get Connor Hellebuyck more games off than you've done in previous years. So, this seems like a perfectly fine opportunity to give Hellebuyck a night off. And I don't really have much of a quibble or much of a question regarding that, but it's more the usage of some of the forward lines that my question is, you in most people's minds, you line them up and
someone was listening to 32 Thoughts.
Well, I mean, I'm not talking, I mean, yes, they broached it as well, talking about the usage of Cole Perfetti and the time on ice there. I do think, though, that it's time for Arneal or Rick Bowness, whenever he's back behind the bench. I think it is time that you see an increased time on ice for what most people call the Jets' second line, that being Ehlers, Nemesnikov, Perfetti. In reality, that's the third line based on deployment. They're using the Lowry line much more frequently. I think it's time to see that third line, I'll call it the Ehlers, Nemesnikov, Perfetti line, so that there's no confusion, to get increased ice time, because that has been one of the Jets' most efficient lines and one of the most possession positive lines as of late. I mean, Scheifele, Connor, and Velarde were incredible possession wise in the very short window that they played together. But since Velarde's been gone and Iafallo's been up there, that's actually been a negative possession line. It's been sub 50% when they've been on the ice together. But Ehlers, Nemesnikov, and Perfetti have been positive.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, there's, as those guys, Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman said on, I thought it was very curious. I don't know. Did you listen to the whole thing or
no?
Did you read okay, well, I just thought their comments were curious. Like, you basically said, like, you have to let the agent know. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why? At what point have we like, one thing to say to Cole Perfetti, Cole, this is what we're planning on doing, and we want to use you more, but for right now, this is what we're going to do, and make sure that the players on board. And that's one of the things Jets players have been able to say of this coaching staff is that they're led to they're informed as to where they stand and what is kind of a plan with them. So that's one thing. But I just thought it was a very curious comment that you have to make sure that the agents know, and it's why? And what have we gotten to the point now where we have actually, if you think about it, if you look at go back this summer and think about the role the agents played in the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation, sure. And
the agents are the ones brokering trades, and
that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. Like his agent was actually brokering trades, calling teams, whatever it is. So it is very unusual. The I don't want to say power, but the role that agents now seem to possess. Which again, Drew, we've been watching this league or covering this league for a long time. I don't ever recall agents having sort of this level of authority within organizations, and the idea that they need to be informed. It's no, if a team tells a player and then the player calls their agent, the idea that the general manager of a hockey team has to inform an agent of a player who's under contract as to their plan. I don't know. I'm not saying that Perfetti obviously wanted that or desired that or called for it. I just thought it was a bizarre ask or statement by Friedman yesterday in terms of the necessity to inform the agent. Now getting the agent, and then he would be on board with everything that's going on. Getting back to your original question though, you definitely like what you've seen from the Perfetti line, but you also, as those two acknowledged on their podcast, you have to offset it with the fact that the Jets have now won 3 games in a row. So it's hard to argue with success and say, well, let's change and let's be realistic. This is hockey. They don't change easily. Right. And once you find a formula that seems to work, you stick with it. So to me, is that I think what was on Thursday's game, Perfetti had 2 shifts in the last 10 minutes. And the second one came with 22 seconds left in the game or something like that.
When it was out of hand already.
Yeah. When it's already 4-1. So, I think there's no question that and Scott Arniel acknowledged at the end of the game and in a question to Kenny, that idea that they want to get Perfetti more minutes. Well, the only person who controls whether Perfetti gets more minutes, Scott, is you. So if you want to get him more minutes, it's not a difficult situation. But again, like I said, I do understand situationally if you're concerned about protecting a lead and you don't feel that he's yet ready there, then you throw in someone like Morgan Barrett and give him an opportunity to get that ice time or whatever.
Well, that would be my sort of follow up there is why do they think he's not ready for that instance? Is it? I have to believe it's just they think that he's undersized. And well, newsflash, he's never going to not be undersized. It's not like there's a growth spurt coming between grade 6 and grade 7 here, where all of a sudden he's going to shoot up to being 6'3". You drafted him knowing this, but you also drafted him knowing that he's one of the most intelligent players, that he's got tremendous hockey smarts, and that he's got that ability to even handle those what I'll describe as heavier situations. This isn't a player who's defensively irresponsible, in his own zone. And I understand that you don't, if he was a raw rookie, you wouldn't necessarily want to throw him out there because, it does take, there's a learning curve when it comes to success in the NHL. But I'd say at this point, Cole Perfetti and some of his line mates have earned that responsibility. They've done enough and shown enough that they're not, defensively irresponsible, that they can handle, minutes in a close game because they're possession positive. So if you're possession positive in the first 50 minutes of the game, there's no reason to think that you're all of a sudden going to be possession negative in the last 10 minutes. Now, there's obviously going to be instances where you get hemmed in, and that's just the nature of hockey. You can't, it happens to the best of the best.
Like your top line.
Right. Your top line is possession negative. So, it happens to the best of the best. But if for the majority of the games they've played together, they've been able to control the puck and they've been able to control the flow of play, to all of a sudden yank that from them because they're not able to handle those minutes when when push comes to shove or when it's crunch time, to me just doesn't logically, it doesn't compute. I mean, it's coach brain is what I think it is, that small guys can't handle tough minutes. That to me is coach brain. We've talked about coach brain on this show before, where coaches get so trapped in their way of thinking because of how they've handled things for so many years and so many decades before that they can't adapt. To me, that's an instance right now where they don't seem to be able to adapt.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's hard to argue with the fact that you've had the success, but you're right, Drew. At the same time, like, you look at that line, and the line has been able to possess the puck. So, I mean, what is the number one thing that you always want to do in hockey is have the puck on your stick, and that is something that this team, that line, specifically, is been able to do. And so, yeah, I mean, look, we'll see if Scott Arniel follows what he says, which is, get Perfetti out, because, I mean, look, if Perfetti isn't ready, then send him to the AHL.
Well,
Like, if
but
you don't
there's nobody who thinks
and I'm being
he isn't ready.
yeah. No, I know that, but I'm being sarcastic, of course.
Your tongue
Well,
is
I mean,
in
not
cheek there.
not that I'd be okay with covering him on the Moose, but I'm just saying that.
I'll tell you who wouldn't be okay with that: Cole Perfetti's agent.
Yes, good point. And I agree with Scott's comment that, like, to me, it's like one of those things. It's like, again, you just have to work hard and earn your ice time, and that's the way. But again, today, it's not the way it was. Like hockey isn't hockey from 20 years ago. And again, like, the coddling of players and the agents and everything else has completely changed from what it was when you did have to just put your nose to the grindstone, work your ass off, earn your minutes, and force them to not be able to take you out and that sort of thing. So it's not that way anymore. So I understand it. I mean, you lament certain elements of things that have changed, in my opinion, for the worse, which is like something like this, where the idea that you have to, coddle players in general and the agents specifically. But getting back again to this idea of minutes, and I just think, like, I mean, again, I'm not losing my mind that Cole Perfetti is only playing 10 minutes, but at the same time, you do expect for your second line overall to be in that, 14 to 16 minute mark. I mean, think about it. For years, Drew, what was the big thought? Like, why is Ehlers only playing 14 to 17 minutes a game, or 18 minutes a game, or something like that? Well, you're running the other lines down. And one of the things about this Jets club, and forgetting about the specificity of the second line, or focusing on the second line, one of the biggest things you wanted to see from this Jets club was the fact that they were going to roll their lines, because they have that depth, because you can get scoring from the third line, because you can get scoring from the fourth line, and not worry about them getting scored on. So to me, it's also, and again, it's a function of keeping your first line fresh. I mean, when you're playing these guys 25 minutes a game, or 23 minutes a game, or 21 minutes a game, even, you're just, you don't necessarily have as much left in the tank. I don't care that they're in superior shape. It's just an unnecessary taxing on your players, especially early in the season, when you should be able to have that trust to distribute it a little bit more evenly.
Yeah, it's just something to keep an eye on. I mean, look, these are the deployment of players is something that ebbs and flows throughout the course of an entirety of a regular season. So right now, with the Connor, Scheifele, and Iafallo line, I'm going to use the word struggling, but I don't think it means struggling in the really overwhelming sense of the word. I mean, it's not like they've been bad. They haven't been as effective as Connor, Scheifele, and Vilardi. That was, I mean, again, they only played 2 games and 24 minutes of 5-on-5 ice together, and they were at 74% possession. We know how good that line was before Vilardi went down with the injury, and it certainly dipped significantly. Only 42% possession for Connor, Scheifele, and Iafallo. But we know how quick strike Connor and Scheifele can be. We've seen it over so many years now that it's not necessarily breaking news. To me, though, it's just a little bit of an interesting thing to watch as the games go on and as crunch time occurs, because you can't run Appleton, Lowry, and Niederreiter, every shift in the last 10 minutes of a game. At some point in time, you do need to rely on other forward lines to take some of the difficult matchups, to potentially take difficult face-offs in your own zone, and to be able to handle that responsibility. And I do think that Ehlers, Nemestikov, and Perfetti can handle that responsibility, and I'd like to see them get sort of more of an opportunity to do so, play more minutes in those crucial crunch times of games where the Jets are either trying to maintain a lead or increase a lead or whatever the specifics are, assuming it's a close game at that point in time. Especially tonight, you look, and we'll touch more on the Montreal Canadiens, the Jets' opponent, later on in the course of this program. But you look at that Canadiens team tonight, Dave, and that defense that they have back there. The forward group has got some nice pieces, a little bit aging, a little bit getting older with some of them. They still have obviously the young players in Suzuki and Caulfield, but towards the bottom of their lineup, they're getting a little bit older with guys like Gallagher and Pearson and Monahan. But those guys can still play. Those guys are still, don't get me wrong, bona fide NHLers. But it's the defense that you have to be able to exploit on the Montreal Canadiens, because it's certainly not a team of household names. Some Jets fans might be more familiar with it. Obviously, Johnny Kovacevic is there since he left the Manitoba Moose, and he's fit in very nicely, as we talked about really ad nauseum for the last little while. But other than that, it is not it's not a name brand not a name brand defense that you would hope the Jets, with their offensive depth and their offensive firepower, are able to exploit tonight against the Habs.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, look, it's Montreal is a team that's still on the grow and developing all of their young assets, and you're still, I mean, look, they're hoping to take that next step. And you're right, Johnny Kovacevic is we'll talk to Mark Dumont about him a little bit later in this show, Drew. But it's definitely a team that is still not expected to challenge, and that's the reason why the whole PL Dubois situation in the summer was a little bizarre, because it was like, you're not a team that's ready to challenge for the Stanley Cup,
right?
And you're going to trade away assets potentially, even though, of course, they wanted to give the Jets a handful of seeds for the player, but it wasn't a team that anybody was like, this is a team that's ready to make that next step. So from a Jets perspective, in a team that has playoff aspirations, not that Montreal doesn't, of course, but for a team that does, you do need to have a good start, and you need to ensure that you take it to these guys, because again, these are the types of games you can't really afford to lose and be like, okay, well, we had 3 in a row. Like, this is the time where you can really put a streak together and start to, gain some, because look, Colorado finally suffered their first loss after going undefeated for the majority of the time. Minnesota has been having a little bit of a hiccup in the Central, but I just think that the Central, and it's what we talked about before the season even began, is that after Colorado and Dallas, and even Dallas hasn't been like tearing it up, but after Colorado
won.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying like they're good, obviously, but I'm saying like it's not like they're out of reach of the Jets. What I'm getting at,
of course not.
And so and again, obviously very early in the season, but I just think it's a function of this. You could put yourself in that conversation for 2. Maybe not necessarily 1, but you're just keeping yourself in that mix. And this is the type of game where you need to have, again, a strong start. Laurent Brossoit played well in his first game of the season, so you want to show that you've got faith in him to
plus a big game for him, returning to his home province of Quebec.
I could sense where you were going, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure Drew's being sarcastic. I'm pretty sure he's being
that wink that I was doing there wasn't me suffering a stroke. That was Laurent Brossoit, despite his last name is from BC, not from Quebec.
No, I know, but where was it on a broadcast for someone? I don't remember. I do remember when someone was talking like about the Frenchman Laurent Brossoit, and I was like, huh? I'm like, well, his name is French, and I believe the story was that one of his grandparents was from Quebec. But ultimately, you're right. He was born and raised in BC.
Yes, exactly right. So it's certainly not a homecoming for him, but he's expected to be the Jets starting goalie. We'll find out a little bit more about that in about what time the Jets hit the ice? 11:30 Eastern, so 10:30 Central. So while we are still being on air, assuming that YouTube doesn't pull the plug, entirely possible that they might finally pull the plug on this debacle. But assuming we're still on the air at 10:30, we'll give you the latest on the Winnipeg Jets game day skate. It was an off day for the Jets yesterday, so we're not really expecting any lineup changes. I don't recall anybody being banged up on Thursday night in Detroit, so we would expect there'd be no lineup changes except for, of course, Laurent Brossoit expected to be the starting goaltender tonight. But that too could be incorrect. We'll find out more in about 1 hour's time, give or take. When we come back on the program, our good friend Sarah Orlesky is going to join us. We'll talk to Sarah about the Jets' start to the season. We'll talk to her about Blake Wheeler's homecoming on Monday night. That's a big game on the calendar that a lot of people have circled. We'll talk about the start to the season and everything else. Sarah Orlesky joins us next. Saturday morning, Drew Mindell, Dave Manouk. This is the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms. Bottom of the hour, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Manouk with you on this Saturday morning. Reminder, after tonight's game, the Illegal Curve post-game show, right around 9 o'clock, give or take, talking about the Jets and the Habs and everything that goes down in Montreal. To talk more about the Jets, we're pleased to welcome back to the program our very good friend, Sarah Orlesky, senior host for the Jets. Is that the official title? Did I get that right?
Yes, senior host and producer. Jamie Thomas likes to say that I tried to get as long of a title as possible while going in. So you can say whatever. It's only Jamie that I make say every single part.
That's the important. Look. Jamie and I are in the same fantasy football league. So when it comes to giving, and actually multiple fantasy football leagues, when it comes to giving Jamie the gears, I'm an expert at that. So I try to keep it. That's behind the scenes. It's a little bit of sneak peek behind the scenes of Jamie and my relationship. But I'm definitely going to be much nicer to you, Sarah, as I usually am. You scare me a little bit, Jamie. Not so much. How was the AMA? How was the Reddit AMA yesterday?
You know what? It was a lot of fun. Actually, someone on there said that they had seen some of our content in the off season, and they felt that I didn't seem to have a lot of patience for Jamie. I did for Mitch, and not for Jamie. But Jamie and I felt like I needed to explain to people that Jamie and I go way back. We've known each other for so many years. When he was with Sportsnet and kind of in our TV broadcasting lives. So anyways, we have a long history and he's a ton of fun, but it was a great time. I really enjoyed having the opportunity to interact with some of the fans. And it's always tough though, because, people will ask, they always want to know who's the funniest, who's the most interesting guy that you've spoken to on the team. And I say it's kind of like picking, it's kind of like picking kids. Like this one, I don't, they all have there's so many great things I think about dealing with players and kind of in any league that you deal with, that there's different things about different players that you appreciate so much. But I always love the opportunity to be able to chat with Jets fans. It's always a lot of fun.
Sarah, I was going to ask you who your favorite member of Illegal Curve was. I thought that would be the most important question, that it could be dropped on that AMA.
You don't have to answer that. Okay. You can say none of the above. That's also an acceptable answer. Sarah obviously brought you on, talk about the Jets season so far. A good week for the team, 3-0, looking to make it 4-0 tonight in Montreal. The first few games, there were some peaks. The game in Calgary to start the season, although it was a loss, obviously, didn't go well didn't end well. But the play on the ice was good, and then the win versus Florida and the loss against LA less good. So it's sort of a little ups and downs, but it seems like they're now sort of finding their rhythm, which is always takes some time. To begin the year, to sort of find where you're going to level off at least as a baseline. Would you agree with that assessment, that they sort of seem that they now know, where their game needs to be at to be successful, at least early on this season?
Yeah, and I think if you ask them, they always knew where their game needed to be at. It's just that it wasn't there. But certainly they had their ups and downs early. And mentioned it's so easy to make, I think, early judgments, and yet it's something that we shouldn't do, because it is only 7 games in, and you do look at it and go, okay, they need a little bit more time. You look at some of the teams that either have done really well to get it for their start so far this season, or conversely, ones that have really struggled, that have been surprising. You go, okay, you need to give them a little bit of time to see where everything factors out and where it levels out. And I think that hopefully that's what we're seeing from the Jets now, that what we're seeing from them in these last couple of games is what we can expect to see from them throughout this season. I think that going into this year, didn't know exactly what this team was going to be, obviously with the changes that had been made for it, the departures, the new arrivals, different responsibilities given to different players. And so I think that there's a feeling out process that you think of all of the injuries that they had in the preseason or illnesses that impacted the way that the lineup was going to be. So we didn't get the chance to see all those lines that I was so excited. Rick Bowness told us before preseason even started what sort of lines we were going to see. And then we rarely got to see them because of the injuries or illnesses. And then Gabe Vilardi goes out. And so that really impacts every line and they have to shuffle around. So I think that you're starting to see the players settle in now more, play the system that they know that they need to play in order to have success. And hopefully that this is something that they're just going to continue to build on for Jets fans. Because you look at the way that the division is shaping up right now, and then you look at the conference overall, you know that this is, even though there's some teams that haven't gotten off to good starts, there are others that have, you don't want to be in that mushy middle with it. You certainly want to be able to assert yourself.
Well, Sarah, one of the things that we've talked about with this Jets club is the vibe around the room and just the different feel. And you did have a major shift with buying out Blake Wheeler and trading Pierre-Luc Dubois, and obviously bringing in the guys from LA. So, we're in the room. We can see what it's like after practice or after, whatever, a morning skate, but you have an even more in-depth look at what's going on behind the scenes. So from your perspective, obviously not revealing too much of what's going on behind the curtain, but what are you
feel
noticing?
Free to. That's fine also. If you want to.
Of course. I'm just trying to keep Sarah in her role, Drew. I don't want to get Sarah fired. So
hang on. Ex-senior host and producer.
That's right. The newest member of the illegal
hey. Sarah, that's fine. We'll always have you. You know that. But just from your perspective, what are you noticing in terms of that idea of vibe and how this team has gelled throughout the preseason and through the first 7 games?
Yeah, you know what I noticed? I think that I noticed a change last year. And to be fair, it was challenging for the previous years that, you could hear bits and pieces about, what the dynamic might be like, but we weren't in the room because of the COVID restrictions. So that's a long time to go without having any interactions. I mean, to just constantly, in my situation, to just do Zoom interviews or for broadcast to do headset interviews. I mean, when Nate Thompson came and went, the Jets, I sent him a message after he left the team and said, I think this is the first time that I've ever said thanks for the interviews, and I've never actually talked to you face to face. So it was tough to get a read on everything or just a sense on it. And I don't think that we ever truly know, despite the fact that we're in the room, you still get such a limited view of it. But I felt that last year you started to see a change in the vibe around that room. And then again this year, I think that just from even speaking to players, I think that they recognize personality wise, like for us and you guys with media, that they need to show more personality. They want to show more personality for it. And I think that when you look at it overall, that this is a team that gets along really well, that there doesn't seem to be maybe the veterans versus young guys, or cliques going through there. That there just seems to be, I think that Adam Lowry and the leadership group as a whole, but Adam being captain is a great choice. You hear the stories, even Gabe Vilardi, I think, went over for dinner at Adam's place, whether it was the beginning of training camp or maybe even before training camp had started. He had him over. And I just think that there's a really good chemistry within that room right now. And if that's something that anyone, we can say about any sports and any team, it doesn't matter whether you're at the professional level or you're talking about amateur sports, you're talking about kids sports, that chemistry off the ice can impact on the ice so much. And you can have all the talent in the world on the ice, but if that vibe isn't there, if that chemistry isn't there, if they don't, whether it be get along, it can be challenging to make it work, especially in a season as long as an NHL one is. So I really like what we've seen from the Jets. It's a fun room to go into. Guys seem more relaxed. You can go and talk to them. Me and Dave knows that, guys are at their stall more often. You can just go and have conversations with them, where I didn't always feel in previous years. And this is going, this even be going way back. A lot of guys would try to get out of the room really quickly, or it just didn't seem to foster that. And you'd go into other dressing rooms and sometimes you'd see players sit around and talk, and you can talk to the guys about a variety of things, whether it be things relating to the team's game, their own game, or you could sit and talk to them about fantasy football. They love talking about how their football teams are doing as well. So I really like what's going on in that room. I think that a lot of credit goes to the leadership group, but I think a lot of credit goes to that coaching staff as well.
Sarah, you can have situations like a young child walking up to Nate Schmidt and saying, "You're bald."
You know what? If you're going to say it to anyone, at least you say it to Nate, because he's such a good sport with it. And he's so great with anytime you see him interact with kids that, if you're going to say it to anyone, he would have been the one to say it to.
My kids say it to me on a daily basis, and that's when I chase them around the house. Nonetheless, Sarah Orlesky, our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning. Sarah, you talk about the vibe, and players would love to say that they don't worry about their contract situation, but they're humans. So when there is uncertainty regarding contracts, it's inevitable that it weighs on them. That uncertainty with Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck has now released, given that they've signed long-term here in Winnipeg. How do you think that they've sort of adjusted as a result of now knowing that they have that security and that they have those long-term contracts? Do you feel as though there's sort of just not necessarily a new vibe around them, but just sort of a one less thing for them to be focused on aside from their on-ice performance?
For sure. As mentioned, how could it not? They're human. And every time a player or anyone tells you that they're not concerned about it, I don't know how you can't be. It's got to weigh on you a bit, whether it be internally, but be the questions that you get from friends and family, from media. I mean, it's just always hanging over there. And I think it hangs over the room as well, because especially when you're looking at players that have the significance to the roster, like Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck do, that if you don't know, okay, well, what's going to happen? Are they going to be traded at some point? Are they going to be here after the deadline? I think that it creates a different feeling around that room. So I know that, having spoken to Mark, that he felt that it was a relief to get it done. I think Connor too. And the good news is that I don't think either of those players are the type that you're going to see any sort of drop off in their play because they've secured the long-term deal. You know how sometimes you see that player, they've got that great season going into that final year of the contract, and then they sign that long-term deal, and then you just see it really plateau. And I don't think you're going to see that with either of those players. You look, Connor Hellebuck is we all know, incredibly motivated for it. He's that type that I don't think whether you gave him a 3-year deal or you gave him a 7-year deal, a 10-year deal, that it would change the way that he approaches anything and his desire. He is solely focused on winning a Stanley Cup. And doing whatever he has to do to get to that point. And I think that Mark as well, you look at the way that kind of his career has gone up, plateaued maybe a bit in terms of what you look at the way that he was viewed maybe around the league. And I think that for him, having that security now for it, knowing that that contract is taken care of, that he can continue to try to take his game to the next level, because you know how motivated he is. I mean, he thinks hockey all the time. And one of the things that I've really loved that I've seen from Mark from a leadership standpoint is, it's not like he's 25 anymore, so he's 30, so different expectations for him as well, that he's taken on that leadership role with a guy like Cole Perfetti, that, even though Perfetti's moved to the wing, that those two are close. And earlier on this season, a couple of weeks ago, I saw Mark and Cole stayed out on the ice about 45 minutes after practice ended, and Mark was going over stuff with Cole and Brad Lauer and trying to, okay, so in this situation, this is what you do, and this is how you've got to move in this one. You got to watch out for, you've got to protect yourself this way. Look at moving the puck off the boards this way. And it was just really interesting to see that. I think that that leadership element, not only because of the impact that it can have on an up and coming player, but just the good that it can do for the organization as well, if that's the mindset of a guy like Mark Scheifele.
Sarah, you're doing a lot of new features with the Jets, and one of them we just saw was home ice. Spoke to Josh Morrissey a few days ago. Maybe talk about some of these fun things that you get a chance to do, the behind the scenes opportunities you're getting. And again, just getting a chance, which I think is so critical, to introduce the fan base to the personalities of players. I mean, so many times we talk to guys And I will say we are lucky in the sense that you have a lot of guys who give thoughtful answers like the Lowrys and the Morrisseys. But at the same time, to be able to show them in a different light where they don't have to talk in hockey cliches, they get to talk about whether it's clothes or whether it's music or whether it's whatever, showcasing their personalities. And to me, one of the things we lost with COVID, whether it was like not having fan fests or development camps or whatever it was that connectivity with the community. And I think that what you're doing with a lot of these features is you're connecting players to the community that they didn't, the behind the scenes stuff. So maybe tell fans about some of the things that you guys are doing at the Jets to kind of introduce players in a different way than what they're used to seeing.
Well, when I left TSN and came on board, it was one of the things that excited me the most about the opportunity, because I've covered the Jets since day one. And I said that I still didn't feel as if I had an understanding of a lot of these guys as anything other than players on the ice. And you look at the way that fans, they're so passionate, Winnipeg Jets fans, within this marketplace, but the way that fandom in general has changed, right? Expectation that you want to know more and more about these players that you follow and that you're investing your time in and your money in, and feel that connection to them. And so having the opportunity with Home Ice, as mentioned, where I had the opportunity to sit down with Josh Morrissey, who was really, when I broached it with him, actually, we started talking about it last year, and he said he'd love the idea to talk about something other than hockey and show that these guys are more than just hockey players. And so we've had the chance to talk to Adam Lowry already, Morgan Barron, we've got a bunch of them in the works. So I'm looking forward to, just being able to show some of it, because you also sometimes don't. So these guys, we say, I didn't realize how funny some of them can be, and just some of their different interests. And from talking to Jets fans, one of the things that I always get struck by, it doesn't matter whether or not you are an 8-year-old that dreams of being the next Winnipeg Jet, or you are, a 60-year-old woman who just loves hockey and this team. They want to know everything that they can about these players. And I'm always fascinated by it. And so we're going to be doing that. We've got Runway back again, which we've actually gone longer form this year. That was one of the things that we heard from fans last year, was that they liked the behind the scenes glimpse. They wanted to see more of it and longer episodes. So our first one was 14 minutes, and we've got another one coming out next week where we had one of the key players on the team mic'd up for the home opener. So it should be a good one there. And we're just trying to show different elements, whether it be through social media or features like this, that these guys are people too. They have families, they have interests. It's amazing how many there be history buffs are on the team or various things, that just so that we can learn about them again, more than just what their play on the ice or what the statistics or analytics tell us about them.
Winnipeg Jets in Montreal to face the Canadiens later tonight. The Illegal Curve post-game show will be after that game. Right now, we're joined by Sarah Orlesky, Winnipeg Jets senior host and producer, talking about the Jets so far this year. And now, Sarah, coming up on Monday, the return of Blake Wheeler, certainly a game that's been circled on the calendar for a lot of people. I guess sort of a two-part question for you. What are you expecting, with when Blake returns? The Rangers are in Vancouver tonight to face the Canucks, so they're likely to be in Winnipeg sometime tomorrow. So what are you expecting when Blake comes onto the ice, presumably for morning skate on Monday? And then secondly, you probably know Blake. You've had so many interactions with him for so many years. Is there just one memory about your time covering Blake Wheeler that maybe stands out more than the others?
Well, I'll go with the first part. Begin there with just what I expect the reaction to be. It'll be interesting to see. I would expect that we'll see, for morning skate, that guys coming onto the bench maybe say hi, or certainly we'll see them down after the game, over by the visiting team bus is usually where you'll see the guys meet up afterwards. So expect to see that, and I expect it to certainly be a warm welcome back for Blake Wheeler after all of the years that he spent here, former captain, his connection with a number of charitable causes here within the city. So I expect it to be a good play. But I think, as you said, certainly a game that people have had circled. You look at the month of October, you guys, like right away, every game, it seemed, short of really that St. Louis game, that you could circle and go, okay, here's a major storyline impacting this game. And So it should be good. Plus, it's always fun when the Rangers come to town. I always enjoy that matchup and seeing that organization and that team on the ice. As for interactions with Blake, I mean, it kind of changed over the years. Blake was, before he became captain and early on in his tenure with the Jets, I thought that he was maybe a little bit more approachable. I think I think that sometimes the captaincy and just even as he got older, we just mature and kind of in terms of age, and we just maybe at times change a little bit. I think he had to talk to the media a lot more, or that the expectations were a lot different on him as the years went on for it. But certainly, shared some laughs over the years. And the one that still, I always say that people talk to me most when it comes to Blake Wheeler was one of those first years where we did post-game. We still did the Jets post-game show on TSN, and he came out and I thanked him for the interview, and he said, "Thanks, man." I mean, lady, which I brought up in that Reddit conversation yesterday, only because I'm shocked at how many times that still people will bring that one up to me. So, he could be sometimes he could be really approachable and you could talk to him about stuff, and other times he was more guarded and certainly just wanted to speak about hockey and just be done with it. So it was kind of a mixed bag when it came to Wheeler, but I certainly think that he will be warmly received when he returns to the city, as he should be.
Sarah, what is your biggest surprise early on in this season? And I feel like I could supply you with a bunch of options, because there really have been a lot of guys who have stepped up and changed.
Choice, yes.
Well, I can give you multiple choice, because to me, look,
I love it. It was, it saved me sometimes in school.
Okay. Well, I'll try and make sure I'll try and push you towards C, because everybody always chose C. So my third option will be the one I really want you to answer about. But no, I mean, look, Kyle Connor, 5 goals in 7 games. I mean, he had 2 in 18 last year. We expect him to score. That's what he's doing. You got Mason Appleton. We don't expect him to score. 3 goals in 7 games. He had 5 in 41. Or you can look at a guy like David Gustafsson finally getting the Gus bus, getting out of the hangar and getting a goal. The play of Rasmus Kupari, and he's the one player for me that I had no idea about. And I watched him at every day at Hockey Center for All, just to see what this player was. And, he was fast, he was physical, he was a player I didn't expect. So from your perspective, maybe what's a early kind of thought that from something that not necessarily unexpected, but whatever, just an early season, player that's kind of caught your eye and going, wow, they're impressing me with what they've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, I think that Kupari's they were all great, so I could choose all of the above for sure. But
that was an option.
Those ones always got me in school. I'm like, sure.
They all seem reasonable. Go for it.
Plausible.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I agree with you that I knew very little about Kupari, and I think that's, I think that when you talk to most people, I mean, including the coaching staff admit, right, that they knew what they were getting. They felt they knew what they were getting in Iafallo and what they were getting in Gabe Vilardi, but didn't know necessarily what they were getting, what they could have in Kupari, but knew that the ceiling for him was much higher than what we've seen. So I've really liked what we've seen with him on that fourth line. And the different ways that they've utilized him. Certainly his speed. I mean, I think that was the first thing that most people talked about when the new edge portion of NHL.com came out with some of the different statistics, was the speed that Kupari was credited with having on there, which, to be honest, I mean, I knew he was fast. I wouldn't have guessed that. So yeah, I like what I've seen from a bunch of guys in a variety of different roles. Like, I know that, Cole Perfetti started center, has been moved, at least for now, over to the wing. I like what we've seen from him in the last couple of games. I think that we're going to continue to see him evolve. You think of how little, in terms of actual playing time, that he has had throughout his career. Guys, like, he's at what, 70 something games for his career. He's such a young guy, but you look at the passes that we saw, his pass to Gustafsson, which I love. You saw his great pass and feed in the last game. Like, he's just, I think that we're continuing to see guys grow. And I am always, as much as in order for a team to have success, you need to have that high-end talent, I love to see guys that are typically in your bottom six have success and start to play that prominent role, whether it be offensively or defensively. I'm a sucker for anyone in that bottom six sort of role. It's why I always joke that when I covered football, I love the offensive line, the guys that don't always get all of the glitz and the glamour and the credit for it. And I think that you see the way that Lowry's line, which has seen different players on it, but over the years have been at its core so consistent. I'd love to see guys have success in those sorts of roles. So give me anybody off of the bottom six in particular, and I love to see it because I love that kind of, I don't know if blue collar is the right way to put it really, but just that kind of hardworking, nose to the grindstone sort of mentality is something that I always just gravitate to.
Sarah, Scott Arniel behind the bench now for the Jets, and of course we wish the Bowmans, the bonuses. Sorry, not the Bowmans, the bonuses, the best in health and a quick return to behind the bench.
Yeah.
Are you impressed, surprised, just at how sort of seamless the transition has been? Does that speak to sort of how Scott Arniel and Rick Bowness are on the same page, and the rest of the coaching staff as well, or just so that they're all simpatico, that they can make sort of this transition relatively seamlessly?
Absolutely. I mean, the resume for Scott Arniel, both in his years as playing and then over the years in a variety of different coaching capacities, speaks for itself. But I think that it does speak to the way that coaching staff works together, something that Rick Bowness has really pushed since they came together for it. And I think you even see that from the way that Rick deals with the media in terms of his coaching staff, that it's not always Rick that comes out and speaks. He really pushes that you'll have Scott Arniel come out, or Marty Johnson or Brad Lauer. I mean, they all take different turns doing it, so that although Rick is the head coach, they all have significant roles and real ownership of it. And I think communication, that's something that we heard so much, right, with Rick Bowness last year, about the way that he communicates with players. I think that also the way that he communicates with his staff, and just that the type of mentality that they want that group to have. It isn't a surprise to me. It's not an easy situation to be, not only to once again be kind of thrust into this role, but also the concern about the Bowness family. I mean, it's, that's something that I think weighs heavily on everyone. Scott Arniel and Rick Bowness go back decades in terms of friendship and their family connections. So it's not an easy situation, but I think that also that's a perfect example as to why Scott Arniel was a great coach to bring on to this staff, so that not that you ever plan for scenarios like this, but if you needed to have a coach step in, that you have someone with Scott Arniel's knowledge and experience that as well. And, he's destined to be a head coach again in this league for it. And I think that it's a testament to the environment over the last season and a bit that this group has put together, that they are able, when adversity hits with something like this, that they are able to, at least in front of the cameras, and at least what we see, appear to be able to go through it somewhat seamlessly.
Now, Sarah, every Jets fan wants every draft pick to be a star and be a 100-point guy and da. From a media perspective, selfishly, we just want these guys to be rock stars when we talk to them.
That's what I say all the time.
So my point is that there is a lot of personality coming up through the pipeline. Absolutely. And again, I know we're focused on the current regular season Jets, but I listened to Rutger was on a podcast yesterday, the 2022 first rounder of the Winnipeg Jets, and he spoke for about an hour. Well, on the podcast with a couple of guys talking about college, talked about the Jets a little bit, but Colby Barlow, Rutger McGroarty, this next generation, from your perspective as someone who is a storyteller, how exciting is that from your, again, you focus on the hockey as well, but just also that opportunity to have guys who, as we saw during development camp and training camp, have a lot of personality.
So it is funny how when you look at it more from a business and a professional standpoint, how your perspective can change, because it is very true. Like I'll say certain guys will have gotten traded for the years, and I'll say, I'm so sorry to see them go. And people will point out that either, they hadn't been producing offensively, or look at the struggles they have, I go, yeah, but they were a great interview. So you do look at things, selfishly and very differently. So when you see, especially the way that that next generation interacted with the fans, the media, what personality you saw from them at development camp, I was so excited, Dave, because I can't wait. Because you think that this is, I think that we've seen, an evolution from even, so when I started covering the league, it was in 2002. And I mean, that at that time, players were still playing in the league at a much older age, and it was very much veteran heavy. So you've seen this evolution as guys have gotten younger. And I think that with this Jets team that we see currently right now, we're seeing more personality from them. They're recognizing that they want to be, the importance of connection with the fans, but also just in this age of social media, wanting to, just show a little bit more personality and be themselves, not just be hockey players and that's it. But this next generation are a generation that have grown up their entire life with social media. And you look at guys that are coming out of college that, now have the nil and that are able to recognize that personality and kind of looking at themselves, whether it's, I know old school people won't necessarily like that. Sometimes players look at themselves as a brand, but they are used to showing it. And I think that, hockey in particular, we've often seen guys not want to show as much personality or as some of the other sports and leagues. And I think that this next generation will see even more. And so when you look at the guys that are coming up and you look at some of that are very productive on the ice. So Jets fans, it's not that we don't care about what they do.
Rutger Bregordi is exactly, I think he's tied right now, or I didn't see what happened last night. He had 1 assist as far as I could tell in Michigan's game. So, but he's a leader of scoring.
But I also look, because I have a 14-year-old daughter and she's can't wait for them because she loves watching some of the stuff that they, their interactions on TikTok or on for various things. So I just think that we'll be able to see more personality from them. And that's what everybody wants, whether it's selfishly for those of us that are trying to produce the content or get the interviews, you want engaging subjects for it, or the fans. I just think that it's great to see what we've got coming up, because it looks to be that great mix of skill, and they'll be able to have success fully on the ice and transition to that pro game, but then also be able to show the personality that all of us want to be able to see.
Sarah, last question for you. After having thrown 8 interceptions in his last 4 games, Jordan Love of your beloved Green Bay Packers will throw over or under 1.5 interceptions against my beloved Minnesota Vikings this coming Sunday.
I don't care if he throws 4 interceptions as long as they win, right. Only because they must beat the Vikings. There are a few, you Vikings fans are really quite annoying.
I'm annoying in all walks of life, not just my Vikings.
He's not limited to just when he's a Vikings fan, Sarah.
I haven't been happy with it. Really, I will say under. Actually, you know what? We were talking to Mason. We had Mason Appleton out doing shooting something with us the other day, and someone was asking him, because of course he's a Packers fan, being a good Wisconsin boy in Green Bay. And so he goes, I haven't been happy with the way that it's been going. I go, I wasn't happy from the beginning. This is even though he got the wins early on, I was like, look at who the opponents were. And I said, I'm just, you go from I grew up started watching the Packers when it was the Brett Favre era. And so that was what really got me into Packers. Because you speak of, guys at the time, especially if you were watching NFL films or anything like that, Brett Favre always seemed to just have a lot of fun out on the field, enjoying it. And then you go into the Aaron Rodgers era, you're like, okay, a lot of success, not a lot of Super Bowls, but, still a lot of fun to watch. And I just, I'm not sold. I'm not sold on him there. I said it. But as long as they beat the Vikings, that's what really, the Bear, as long as they beat the Bears, because then I don't have to hear about it from
Toth, yeah.
Toth.
from Toth
Yeah.
for it. And then there are so many. I love Ed Tate.
With the Bombers.
You're a friend of all of ours, who's with the Bombers for years now. I'll often get a text from him because he's a huge Vikings fan as well. So I'll often get a text from him when the two of them are playing, especially if Minnesota does well. So it's all about self-preservation.
There you go. Sarah Orlesky, Winnipeg Jets senior host and producer, great friend of us here at Illegal Curve. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Sarah.
Thanks so much for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
We'll do it again real soon. There she goes. Sarah Orlesky, always a great interview and a great guest. When we come back, more on the Jets and the Montreal Canadiens. Mark Dumont of Montreal Hockey Now going to join us at the bottom of the hour for more insight into the Habs. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk with you. It's Saturday morning. We're live on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go...
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs from restorative to cosmetic dentistry and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
Boston Pizza harnessed Fanalytics to test if the game is better at home or at Boston Pizza. The results are irrefutable. Catch the game at Boston Pizza, powered by Fanalytics.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
We did it again!
You're on fire, man.
There's power in a handshake after a great game or great deal. It shows professionalism and respect. Two qualities Zappia Group Realty take pride in. You don't build a business where 95% of your clients are referred by others without honesty, integrity, and total dedication to client satisfaction. To sell your home for more in less time, shake hands with Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Get started at ZappiaGroup.com.
Are you dreaming of your very own backyard rink this winter, but dreading the work involved? Well, stress no longer, because the Rink Guys are here to make it happen. The Rink Guys are Winnipeg's first outdoor skating rink installation and rink maintenance service. The Rink Guys offer free site evaluations and different rink construction options. Plus, they use a custom-sized liner to prevent any damage to your lawn. Lighting packages are also available to help illuminate your rink during those long, dark winter nights. To get your rink started today, visit therinkguys.com. Always great to catch up with our good friend Sarah Orlesky. good times. She's great. Sarah's always been terrific, and we appreciate her time and her insight as always here on the program. And my fingers hit the wrong button before, so I restarted the show very briefly. I hope I know Dave M noticed that. I saw a little bit of a double take come out of Dave.
I was
M
like, what is going on?
I hit the wrong button. It happens.
That's fine. It's all good. I just thought for a minute, I was like, are we doing something different? Maybe you were introducing a new segment. I was getting a little excited. I didn't expect it, but regardless, I thought it was a little exciting.
Yes, it happens every now and then. I make a mistake. I know it's rare and I know it's off-putting for everybody, but nonetheless, on occasion, it does happen. Want to say a big thank you to all of our sponsors for making this show possible. Our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Betway. They're the title sponsor of the post-game show. That's coming up later on tonight after the Jets and the Montreal Canadiens. Tough Duck, hardest hitting comment. That'll happen as well on the post-game. Boston Pizza, the Seagram shot of the game. Rolly's Transfer, and the Rink Guys. Support these fine businesses because of their support of Illegal Curve Hockey. Sounds like the Habs are going to get some reinforcements on their back end. That's an area of concern for them. Caden Gooley is set to return to the lineup. That's according to Ken Wiebe, who is on site in Montreal. Morning skate is taking place for the Habs, and then the Jets morning skate should begin in about 20 or so minutes time from now. And of course, we'll bring you the latest news and developments, the starting goaltender, and any potential lineup changes. Not that we're necessarily expecting any, but you never know. Maybe somebody's a little bit ill. Maybe somebody's got a little tickle in their throat and isn't going to be able to play for the Jets. But we will find out more about that in the next 20 or so minutes. Dave, this is a game, again, I think that the Jets need to have. You know, you expect to be better than the Montreal Canadiens, albeit the Montreal Canadiens are off to a better start than I would think a lot of people have expected. 4-2-1 the Habs are. They're scoring a very similar amount of goals to the Jets, 2 less than the Jets. They've given up the same number of goals as the Jets. The Jets obviously trying to tighten up on that front since early in the year where the pucks were getting in the net aplenty. But nonetheless, you look at these two teams, you look at where they are aspirationally, and the Jets would say this is a one that we need to have. We expect to be a playoff team. We expect to have, built our roster in the manner that potentially we can win around. If everything breaks out, you never know more than that. And the Habs, as you addressed sort of early on in the program, are a team that is still trying to rebuild itself. A lot of talent up front. We know, the names, the headline names for the Habs are in their forward group. Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki. We know about all these guys. It's the back end that the Jets have to take advantage of when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens.
No, I mean, there's no question about it, Drew. I mean, it is a fact that these are the games that you need to be able to win. I mean, again, you want to be able to beat the good teams, the upper echelon teams. And yeah, look, Montreal has 4 wins. So it's not as if they're an 0-7 team. And I think sometimes that's important to remember, right? I mean, it's like when Jets fans were losing their minds over losing to Vegas. I'm like, well, Vegas came in and they were 5-0. They hadn't lost a game. So it wasn't like you beat a team and they were 5-0 with all those injuries, right? They were missing a number of players on their back end, and yet they still looked like a pretty damn good team. So a team that was a defending Stanley Cup champion. And I just think that you can't take a team like Montreal lightly. You can't go in with an expectation like this is an easy game. And I'm not saying that the Jets are doing that, of course. So I just think, like, from a Jets perspective, you've had everything kind of break your way, right? You've put together a win streak, so you're feeling good about your game. Your coaching staff has given you a fair bit of time off, right? Like, they used Wednesday as a travel day. Yesterday was presumably, they referenced it as a day off, but I mean, it was, I'm assuming, unless they may have traveled after and had to give the players, because I know you have to give the players certain days off. So we'll see, but they're also off on Sunday. So the fact of the matter is the Jets have a lot of rest. As I said, this is the opportunity for this team with the pacing of days off, travel days, and the schedule, that there's no excuses really for a Jets club to be like, oh, we were flat or whatever, because they should be rested. I mean, you could say you're maybe not as crisp because you're not playing as much or you're not practicing as much, but ultimately these are the advantages that you look for in a season. And one thing we heard from Rick Bowness during training camp was when they looked at the schedule last year, they didn't like the Jets schedule. They didn't like the way everything kind of played out for them when you looked at the totality of the 82 games. He specifically said they like this schedule. And again, it's early. It's only 7 games in. It's, not even, I think when did the season start? 2 weeks ago, Drew, or something like that? Feels like it was like a year ago already.
I think it's 17 days ago now. If I look back at the calendar, I think the season started October 11th, if I'm not mistaken.
So, I mean, again, like I said, to me, it's not like the season has been that long, but again, you've been lucky in the sense that the schedule has played out the way you have, and you've played well through the majority of those hockey games. So the Jets have to be feeling confident in their group. And again, ultimately, even though we talked about the ice time, start to roll that group, because you do have the confidence that your fourth line can get things done. David Gustafsson, again, almost had a chance, didn't have a goal last year, had a chance for his second one last game, has had a number of chances, and again is doing well on the PK. And we talked about Rasmus Kupari and all of these guys. You got Morgan Barron on your fourth line. He's getting that opportunity to jump up. Of course, it's the battle of the Barons, as Kenny Wiebe of the Winnipeg Free Press wrote about in the Free Press, which you of course can read in the morning papers on illegalcurve.com. We can't read Kenny's article, but you can be linked to Kenny's article.
Well, you should buy a subscription, and then you can read Kenny's article.
Well, obviously, that's the only way you'd be able to do it. Now, what I was going to say to Sarah, I didn't get a chance to, but like it used to be that saying Sarah Orlesky of TSN just felt natural, right? Because Sarah worked for TSN for so many years. Then when Sarah left TSN to work for the Jets, that to me was like a foreign concept. Like Sarah, I associated with TSN, but now saying Ken Wiebe of the Winnipeg Free Press, even though I know he began his media career many, many moons ago with the Free, he's now the title holder of most unusual guy with an organization. So Kenny, well done. Kudos to you. Kenny's of course on the road trip, so any information we're getting is coming via Kenny. And like I said, that this is a Montreal team that as you said, not the right side, Drew, because we know Johnny Kovacevic is patrolling that right side, and it'll be interesting to see.
He's not patrolling all 3 positions on the right side.
That is true. That is true. But
no,
again,
it's not a name brand defense. It really isn't. I mean, with all due respect, I mean, Justin Barron, of course, Morgan's brother, I mean, is playing an elevated role over where you would expect him to be playing. He's, Jordan Harris, I'm not familiar with Jordan Harris, and I'm not, going to pretend I am. Gustav Lindstrom. I mean, these are not names that roll off the tongue of any, expert hockey watchers. I mean, they just aren't. And so that's why the Jets need to be able to take advantage. And that's where their depth is, I think, going to come into play. The improved depth is something that we've talked about all season long so far, because it's been a significant factor. But when you can roll those 4 lines, and when you can keep your players by and large relatively fresh, throughout the course of the game, then you should be able to take advantage of a weaker team's defense, where you can continue to roll that out and continue to hem them in their own zone. Because, the Montreal Canadiens, they are not a great possession team. The Jets are a better possession team than the Habs at this point. The Jets are, of course, right now they are 7th in Corsi for percentage. The Habs are towards the bottom third of the league, if I'm not mistaken. 22nd. So the Jets should have a possession advantage. They should be able to take advantage of that weaker defense. But at the same time, the Jets have to be concerned with Montreal's firepower, particularly, in the top of their lineup. Cole Caulfield, great young player. Nick Suzuki, we know, great young player. Both those guys are off to pretty good starts so far this season for the Habs. Sean Monahan, veteran guy, not as young as he once was, also playing some pretty good hockey.
That line itself, the Monahan line with Tanner Pearson, Drew, and Brendan Gallagher. Yeah, I mean, again, look, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on the Montreal Canadiens. That's why we have
That's why we have Mark Dumont coming.
I was going to say we'll allow Mark to tell us about what's going on in Montreal. Yeah. But getting ready for the show and getting ready to write the pregame report, you do a little bit of reading about what's going on in Montreal, and from everything you're hearing, I mean, they're very satisfied with the way that line has kind of come together. So, look, there's a lot of youth, there's a lot of inexperience, but they're growing together as a group. Similar almost to what the Jets had to do with their forward group when they had to kind of, take a step back, as you will, knowing that they were going to deal with some growing pains. But the benefit, of course, would be that these guys are kind of being a trial by fire and learning, at the NHL level as opposed to learning in the AHL.
Well, I would say about Montreal's forward group, and it's a word that I've used a lot, about some of the Jets' depth forwards, is that it's it's a forward group that's filled with professional hockey players. Again, Tanner Pearson, Sean Monahan, Brendan Gallagher, all guys who are a little bit longer in the tooth and have probably seen some of their best days come and go. But those are guys who are bona fide NHLers, who are professional hockey players. Josh Anderson and Alex Newhook. Alex Newhook, of course, new to the Habs, younger guy still, but came over from Colorado. Professional hockey players. This isn't a guy who's a fringe guy who's playing over his head. He's a guy who's still trying to get up to speed a little bit, but there's no question that he belongs in the NHL. Josh Anderson, a guy who has given the Jets fits over the year, really struggling to start this year. I believe Anderson has all of 1 assist. So he's got 0 goals and 1 assist in 7 games. So that Josh Anderson is a guy who's looking to get himself on track. That's a guy who's the Montreal Canadiens need more from him. And he's a guy who always shows flashes, but is very inconsistent. That's the knock on him going back to his Columbus days, if I recall correctly. And they're playing with Slavkovsky, who, of course, was the high pick of the Montreal Canadiens a couple of years ago. Another guy, only 1 assist in 7 games. So the Habs do have that mix of young talent and veteran talent that makes their top 3 forward lines, I would describe them as intriguing / dangerous, especially with a guy like Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki, guys who are able to really take over games, if you're not careful enough. So the Jets do have to certainly be very much aware of the Habs and their forward group, but they also need to be able to take advantage of that weaker defense. So you could almost say that the forward groups for both teams are almost a wash. Maybe the Jets have a slight advantage in that they have Kyle Connor and that they have Mark Scheifele and some exceptional goal scorers, but it's pretty close. It's the defense, and not that the Jets defense is anything usually to write home about, by and large, when you compare it to all 32 teams in the NHL. But if the Jets defense is middle of the pack, for argument's sake, the Montreal Canadiens defense is probably bottom 5, given what they're planning on rolling out there tonight. And that's an area the Jets have to take advantage of, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think you've laid it out quite nicely, so I'm not so certain what I can add to that topic, Drew. But I think that's what you do going into any game, right? You try and figure out where your advantages are in your opponent and exploit them. And I think that Jets have done a fairly good job of playing within the system that they've created. And again, you know that Rick Bowness brought in a different one that Paul Maurice had. And even though that people get sick of hearing about systems and the reality is it just seems like there's a lot more comfort in guys playing within the system. And one of the guys we have to highlight, because his play has been really good within the system, is Mark Scheifele.
Sure.
And
Mark Scheifele's been great.
Mark Scheifele through 7 games has been, again, we saw it last year in spurts, but we didn't see it consistently. And again, I'll throw in the caveat that it's 7 games, but at the same time, through 7 games, you have to like what you're seeing from Mark Scheifele defensively, breaking up opportunities, getting back in time to be an asset defensively. So to me, that's been one of the things. He's becoming that all-around center that the Jets desperately needed him to be. He's not a one-zone guy. You can expect Mark Scheifele to play in all 3. So to me, Mark Scheifele's play has been significant. And again, you need more from Kyle Connor defensively. But again, that line is now readjusting itself as they absorb Alex Iafallo. And again, I like Iafallo up there. I thought Niederreiter would be the natural fit, but Niederreiter, again, is worked really well with Appleton and Lowry. So you don't really want to mess with it. And to me, again, it becomes a function of, again, like I see what you're saying in terms of that wash element, Drew.
Yeah.
So again, you do have to do the things. And ultimately, whether it's Laurent Brossoit or Connor Hellebuck, which we'll learn when we're having Mark on, I would imagine. So we'll maybe throw it into the chat while Mark is chatting what Kenny's keen eyes see at morning skate.
Yeah.
But again, I just think it'll be just an interesting hockey game. And look, I one of the comments in the chat was like Jets always get humiliated on hockey night. But the other one of the corresponding comments was, every day is a new day. And so that's the reason why we watch hockey games. That's why I always laugh when I see these like projections and it's like, well, what's the point of playing They've made a projection based on a multitude of factors that could transpire from day 1 to day 2, let alone, game 82. So there's a reason why you watch these games every night and you listen to these shows, is because something new happens, some variable gets added or subtracted that makes it interesting to watch and changes the element. So I was just gonna say, I just think it'll be a good one tonight. And again, like I said, it'll just be it'll be an additional piece of information for us to see how a Jets team that feels good about their game goes into Montreal and see how they can take care of business.
Yeah, quick updates on the Montreal Canadiens roster for tonight, courtesy of Mark Dumont, who's going to join us coming up at the bottom of the hour in a few minutes' time. So I mentioned Caden Gooley coming back into the lineup. So is Yoel Armia, so the former Winnipeg Jets player, of course. Yoel. That's what I said. Yoel.
Yo-Yo Ma.
Yo-Yo Ma. Is he a cellist as well? I don't know about that, but he's going to be in the lineup along with Caden Gooley, as we mentioned. Jesse Ylonen and Gustav Lindstrom are coming out of the Montreal Canadiens lineup, and Jake Allen will get the start versus the Winnipeg Jets tonight. Jake Allen been, again, another guy who's been goes very hot, and when he's hot throughout his career, even back in the St. Louis days, when he's been on, he's been very difficult to beat, and when he's not on, he's really a bit of a sieve. He's got a .929 save percentage to start the year so far. So he's been playing very well for the Montreal Canadiens as well. So the Habs lineup changes, those are them so far with tonight's game. And of course, we'll know more about the Montreal Canadiens when we talk to Mark Dumont coming up momentarily here on the program. But this is still a Winnipeg Jets team, where they need to take advantage of the Habs back end, even with the addition of Gooley, which is a better addition to their back end. The Jets still need to be able to take advantage of that, and it's always fun to play in Montreal on a Saturday night, hockey night in Canada, HNIC as I like to call it. Only I like to call it, but I like to call it that. So forget about the Winnipeg related attendance issues. It doesn't matter. Anytime you're playing in a Montreal or a Toronto or any sort of original six market on a Saturday night with the spotlight on you, it's going to be one that the players themselves get a little bit more excited for and have that little bit of an extra boost to start the game. And so the Jets need to channel that and try and jump on this Montreal Canadiens team early. When you face young teams like the Habs, young with the exception of sort of that third line that's very that's veteran laden, you want to get off to a good start. You want to make them feel bad about themselves. You want to get that extra boost and maybe take the crowd out of it, because we know how in Montreal particularly they can feed off the crowd and the reactions thereof. So that's going to be something that I'm going to look for tonight, the start that the Jets have against the Montreal Canadiens.
Well, I'll be watching to see if the Barron family are doing the split jersey down the middle with a Jets / Montreal or Canadiens jersey. We'll see if they're doing that. That was the old, I remember Ryan and Drew Miller's parents, mother specifically, used to do that, where she would wear Red Wings, Sabres, amalgamated jerseys. So we'll see if we see that on the Barron family, which I suspect will be featured numerous times throughout the broadcast on Sportsnet.
No question about it. Still nothing better than when the Primo brothers fought each other. That was still by the best brother on brother interaction when it came to the NHL. Let's go to break. When we come back, Mark Dumont, of course, is going to join us to talk more about the Habs, more insight into the Jets opponent. We'll bring you the latest, of course, from Winnipeg Jets morning skate, which is set to get underway momentarily. If you haven't already done so, smash the like button. Do what Dave M is showing you to do. Pantomiming, playing some charades. Do that, and we'll love you forever and always. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show live on a Saturday morning. Bottom of hour number 2. Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk with you. Jets and the Montreal Canadiens later on tonight. And then afterwards, the Illegal Curve post-game show will bring you the latest on tonight's contest. Of course, that'll be right around 9 o'clock or so, maybe a little bit before that, but within a few minutes of the all-important 9 p.m. hour. To talk more about the Montreal Canadiens, we're pleased to welcome to the program from Montreal Hockey Now, Mark Dumont joins us on the show. Good morning, Mark. How are you, good friend? We cannot hear you at the moment. Yes. No, we cannot hear you. Still can't hear you. Okay, 1 second. I will ramble incoherently while Mark addresses his audio issues. No worries, it happens all the time here. Not the first time nor the last time that this has occurred, but we will work through these issues as things go on. It's the beauty of live television.
Can you call this television?
Yeah, you can call this television. Why not? Or on a screen somewhere. I think that's good enough for it to be called television. According to Mitchell Clinton, on site in Montreal, as expected, Connor Hellebuyck isn't taking warm-up shots from Dylan Sandberg this morning, as he usually does. Laurent Brossoit is in the visitors' net, so it would appear as though he gets the start tonight in Montreal. Mark, can you hear us? Can we hear you now? You can hear us, but we still can't hear you.
Nope.
No, still can't hear you. Maybe do you want to leave the studio and come back or something along those lines, or restart the computer? Okay, we're going to work through. There he goes.
He can always test it. You maybe just text him. He can test it before he comes in. I think under the settings.
It's true. You can test it in the settings. It's but Mark will work it on. We'll work it out as he always does, and he'll join us momentarily. But like I said, Laurent Brossoit getting the start over Connor Hellebuyck. I mean, it's fine with me. It doesn't. Well,
you have to get him. You have to get him into some games,
right? When there's been such a lack of back-to-backs, and there aren't any really on the horizon. You got to give him games where you can.
That's right. And tonight is a good game to give him. I mean, you do understand the idea, right? But I mean, it's Connor Hellebuyck's played 3 games this week, so I mean, it's he's playing really well, and it really would be very taxing for him to go in tonight. But I suspect you want to have a good effort against the Rangers on Monday. So you'll let Connor Hellebuyck take that game, and the Rangers are playing some decent hockey. I think that I believe they've torn through Alberta, and now they're, as you said, Drew, into Vancouver this evening. So we'll see what they can do on their Western Canadian road trip or road swing. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they use this goalie tandem. But one of the things we talked about is you want to get Hellebuyck a little more rested. So we'll give Mark a chance to test his audio. Oh, there we go.
1, 2. I heard it.
I heard
it. But is it good audio or is it bad audio right now?
No, it's good.
It's better than no audio. That much I can assure you.
Well, no, it's just that now I'm using my computer's I have a mic.
Yeah,
it's a good-looking mic.
We have
well, it looks good, but that's about it. I'm gonna. No, you know what? If you can hear me, okay, I guess I'm not gonna play with it anymore. Is this okay?
We're good.
Fine. It's better than we sound, and we have good mics. So, I think that says a lot about us.
The last time I used this mic, they said I sounded like I was, speaking from Atlantis under the sea. So it doesn't sound like I'm SpongeBob or anything.
No, you're good.
Hey,
no. And frankly, a SpongeBob might be a good addition to this program. You've seen him; he does those NFL broadcasts now. Might as well do some Illegal Curve broadcasts too.
I always feel so out of the loop because I was an 80s guy, right? And I didn't watch a single damn episode of that show. And now it turns out that it's everyone else watched SpongeBob. Me was The Simpsons, guys. I don't know about you, but I was really into The Simpsons.
No, we're too old for SpongeBob as well. But my kids, keep an eye on it every now and then. And the theme song is a banger, so you can't go wrong with a good little SpongeBob theme song.
Well, it's fun, right? And that's kind of what Montreal Canadiens are doing right now with the rebuild. They're not the best team, but I'll tell you right now, they're fun to watch. And it's been a long time since the Habs were actually fun to watch.
Well, let's talk about that because we've been previewing today's game, of course, and talking about the Habs. And there's no question what the strength of the team is, and that's the forward group versus the back end. But, you look at that defense, and there's not a lot of household names on that defense. So how have they been able to get off to a good start with the sort of defensive shortcomings that they have?
It's funny, but everyone looks at guys like Caden Gooley or Jordan Harris, Mike Matheson as the guys that'll really run the defense, but it's been Arbor Xhekaj that's been the most dominant guy. Statistically speaking, like if I go full nerd and I really polish these glasses, Arbor Xhekaj has been the most dominant defenseman, not just because he can lift a minivan over his head and with one arm, but he's actually been playing really well. He's been doing fantastic defensively. He's been launching the attack. So Arbor Xhekaj right now is the Montreal Canadiens star on defense, believe it or not.
Well, Mark, got to ask you about a guy that I covered here with the Manitoba Moose for so long. Of course,
my favorite.
I know, and I follow your posts about him, and I'm like, oh man, that's just salt in the wounds for folks who knew what the Jets organization had in Johnny Kovacevic. But of course, they took a risk with the contract. They thought that they could get him down to the Moose. And of course, they learned a lesson, and the Montreal Canadiens were the beneficiaries of that lesson. So what have you seen from the player that the Jets organization put a lot of time and effort into? He's a great guy off the ice, and it looks like he's becoming a great guy on the ice for the Montreal Canadiens.
And I'm so glad you mentioned the off-ice stuff, Dave, because Jonathan Kovacevic is the kind of guy that not that you'd want to grab a beer with, is that you'd want to go camping with. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he'd be busy. He'd come back and you're like, look, I built this shelter. I'll take care of the bourbon. But yeah, he's just an amazing guy, a great person. And I'll say this. He's that prototypical, quietly efficient defenseman, right? He's not flashy by any means, but since Jonathan Kovacevic has been claimed by the Canadiens on waivers, he's been their best right-handed defenseman, bar none. It's not just that he's been good recently. He hit the ground running, and it's unfortunate for the Jets, but I feel like it kind of worked out really well for Kovacevic. So that part is great. And honestly, I don't know if there's even space for Kovacevic in that lineup in Winnipeg. So he's found a new home here. And the biggest thing here, Dave, is that he's dirt cheap. His contract it's found money, right? Mm-hmm. So he's outplaying David Savard. He outplayed Kaiden Guhle last year. He's just been the perfect addition. And no matter who plays with him, whether it's Arber Xhekaj or Jordan Harris or Kaiden Guhle, like Jonathan Kovacevic immediately makes all his teammates have better underlying numbers. And when he's on the ice, they don't get scored on. And when he's on the ice, the Canadiens score. So, from start to finish, Jonathan Kovacevic has been a revelation for the Montreal Canadiens. And last year I fought all year. I'm like, stop including him in your damn trade suggestions, because this guy is the best defenseman the Canadiens have on the right-hand side. So I'm happy for him, again, because of what you said, Dave. He's such a great person.
Yeah, and I was going to say, he's one of those guys that we would do like a summer edition of the show, and I talked to him, and you could just talk, and he's a guy who has an engineering degree, so not only is he a good guy,
smarter than us,
hockey, but he's a very smart guy, and he knows what he's talking about in a lot of other elements. So
this summer, what I love, all the guys go to Cancun, right? You could tell the Habs, the last 3 games, they were in Mexico, they were already ready to go. And Kovacevic, he bought a van and he went road tripping with his fiance, I believe, So it just goes to show, that's exactly what I would do. You know what I mean? Go get lost in the forest. So, but he really has been legitimately good. Now this year, not as amazing as last year, but hey man, on a defensive core where there's so many rookies, there's so many holes, Kovacevic has been a godsend for the Montreal Canadiens.
Mark Dumont of Montreal Hockey Now is our guest this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, getting you set for the Jets and the Habs later on tonight. And Mark, you look at Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki, that those guys are the driving force. And you wrote about this in your pregame column. Raphael Harvey-Pinard is playing on the right side with them, and he's been struggling, but at the same time, he's one of the unluckiest players in the league. So is he the right fit to play with them, and it's only a matter of time until things come together for him? Or when you say unluckiest, and I know it's not your number, I think it came from
it was Money Puck, I believe.
Money Puck. How has that sort of expressed itself in on-ice performance?
I mean, ideally, I don't think you want Raphael Harvey. It's the best story the Habs have had in a long time, right? This guy toils in the minors, and he really makes his, last year, he was on the 4th line in the AHL at one point. If he would have been a healthy scratch if the Canadiens had any healthy bodies. So the fact that he made it up to the top line, started playing well, is great. But look, Cole Caulfield's 5'0". Suzuki's a tall 5'10". Raphael Harvey-Pinard's 5'6". Listen, as a shorter guy myself, you don't want your top line not being able to ride most roller coasters, right? That's an issue. They need help reaching stuff from the top shelf. So size-wise, it's not ideal. However, Raphael Harvey-Pinard will outwork guys twice his size, So there's value there. I just don't think long-term you want, your top line to be averaging about 5'9". That's really a return for the Canadiens to a time of the past when things weren't all that great. And it's funny that I say this because, again, I like skill over size, but I still think you want a little more bite there. The problem is they've tried Josh Anderson, and God bless him, he's a north-south guy. He can't do east-west. Once you slow down the game, Josh Anderson's lost. He just needs to go 100 miles an hour from one end to the rink to the other. And there's no one else really that fits there. Last year, Kirby Dach looked great on the top line. But then you start to ask yourself, does Nick Suzuki need a center? on his line to be good. Sean Monahan looked good there too. Same problem. So right now the Canadians are really struggling to kind of find that top line winger. And I'll say this because this is a Winnipeg show and I won't get too much hate. It's time to separate Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. Now that's a whole other subject, but and Montreal, they'll hate me for it, but they just, so far they look good, like they're scoring goals, but the nerd numbers are saying destroy this pairing because, or this duo, because they will get outscored, and they have been getting outscored, especially last year.
There's parallels here in Winnipeg to that with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor. They always score goals, but ultimately the nerd numbers is your term, not mine. But I appreciate.
I get to say that. No.
yeah. Don't worry. These glasses are pretty thick. Also,
True.
I can also get away with it. But same. They're people. They seem like they've been connected at the hip for so long that it's the only option is to play them together. But truthfully, they do often give up more than they necessarily score. It's sort of a conundrum that there's parallels between both situations in both markets.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I believe Kyle Connor, we can probably say he's not going to win a Selke anytime soon, right?
Neither is Scheifele.
No. Well, yeah. Okay.
Scheifele's getting better though, Drew.
Yeah.
There you go. And I've said the same about Caulfield. He's been getting his defensive placement. He's been hitting guys. He last year, he really hit the gym. He was getting sick of being bullied, but again, there's no real defensive presence on that top line, a little bit like what's happening in Winnipeg. So, Nick Suzuki has kind of had to take the bulk of that, and that's really kind of slowed down his offensive numbers. But the fun part here is that, believe it or not, it's the old man line that's doing well in Montreal. And I call them old man line, but listen, Sean Monahan just turned 29.
Yeah, they're younger than us.
Oh, yeah. Tanner Pearson's 31. Brendan Gallagher's 31. Like, if they're old men, then we're all Methuselah, we're but we call it the revival line or the resurrection line here. But they've been actually playing quite well. And it's great to see a guy like Tanner Pearson, who, let's be honest, got screwed over by the Canucks. He's doing really well. Sean Monahan's he's been the Canadians' best player. And Brendan Gallagher, believe it or not, you're going to see him a lot like he was a couple of years ago. Just a little ball of hate, maybe not quite to the Ray Ferraro level, but he's just an intense player, and he's playing well. So that is going well for the Canadians. Believe it or not, it's their younger players that are kind of not really finding the rhythm. But the old man line, which again, average age is about 30 and a half, they've been doing quite well for the Canadians.
Mark, I know you pay attention to what's going on in Laval and making sure that, the pipeline is working. So what are you seeing from Laval coming up that, over the years, maybe Montreal didn't have before?
Well, one really fun thing, Dave, is that, and as you mentioned, they did not have it. Joshua Roy is the Montreal Canadiens' top offensive prospect. Now, if you're rebuilding, I don't think you want Joshua Roy as your best offensive prospect. I mean, that's not insulting him. Like, we saw him with Connor Bedard at the World Juniors. Bedard said, damn, this guy's good. Yes, he is 200-foot player. And sure, it was the best player Bedard had played with until that point. But if you're going down the list, I don't think you really want him as your top offensive prospect. That being said, he's a 5th-round pick, and he's leading the AHL in scoring right now. So I don't say that as an insult to Roy. I say it more as the Canadians definitely need more offensive value or offensive talent. But right now, Roy's hit the ground running. He had 11 points in 5 games. He, right away, his first shift cuts to the middle, scores a goal. So you're seeing a guy that's ready or as close as he is to being ready to get into the NHL. But the cool part, Dave, the Habs left him down there. Like they recalled our friend Yoel Armia, who got sent down. And by the way, Armia, 10 seconds into his AHL assignment, scores a goal. But so they recalled Armia, and today they're going to be playing Armia. And I love that idea. Leave Roy there. Let him, as the youth say, let him cook in the AHL. Bring him up a little later. Like, there's no point in rushing him. The Habs rushed Kotkaniemi. They rushed Galchenyuk. They rushed Slavkovsky. They have to be careful here. They can't screw up Joshua Roy. He was a gift from the gods, from the hockey gods, a 5th-round pick who's leading the AHL in scoring as a rookie. You can't screw it up. So as exciting as he is, it's time to just kind of take a deep breath, let him kind of cook in the AHL. And the same thing for Logan Mailloux. He scored his first goal yesterday. People want him up. Let them play in the AHL. There's a lot of value, as you know, you've covered the Moose for a while, to having a talented AHL team.
Mark, you mentioned Slafkovsky, and he's out 0. I don't think he's got a goal yet this year. 1 assist in 7 games. Same stat line as Josh Anderson for that matter. We'll talk. Leave Anderson alone for now. With Slafkovsky, are the Habs mishandling it? What are they doing here? How do they find? How do they get him back on track to where he was drafted?
It's so unfortunate, and it speaks to kind of the lack of depth in the lineup. But when Kirby Dach went down, it wasn't just Kirby Dach and I feel so bad for him because goddamn, he was ready for, he was playing well. His numbers were off the charts, but he was also playing with Juraj Slafkovsky and Alex Newhook, another newcomer, and they worked really well. It reminded me of the old NHL game where you'd pick like fat, medium, or skinny guys, So they had one skinny guy in Alex Newhook and two big guys in Dach and Slafkovsky. Slafkovsky was playing well, and unfortunately, the moment Dach was out of the lineup, you're missing center depth, that center talent, right? So Newhook took over, but he's not a possession guy. What Dach would do is that he'd create time and space for his line mates. And that was great for Slafkovsky because, in my opinion, he was rushed last year. And this year, they had to put him in a position to succeed. That means top 6 minutes with your best transition center in Kirby Dach. So unfortunately, that's no longer the case. He's kind of floundering out there. I would say he's playing well, but they need, to answer your question, they need to get him confident again. And I don't believe he'll gain that confidence by just getting a chance every 2 nights, right? So the Montreal Canadiens were afraid to put him in the AHL last year. And I will say this, I think Kent Hughes has done a great job with the rebuild so far. And people probably agree outside of Montreal circles. But what they did with Slafkovsky was they said, listen, we thought about calling him up, but what if we're sending him down last year? But what if he doesn't play well in the AHL? What would people say? My opinion, who gives a shit what people would say, if he's in, like, honestly, what does it matter? And if your first overall player can't play well in the AHL, there are bigger issues, than the perception around the league. So they rushed him, and unfortunately, the legacy of Kent Hughes is tied into Slafkovsky. Well, not unfortunately, it's just the way it goes. David Reinbacher, great pick too, but not the sexiest player, right? So we keep going back to this lack of offensive talent. And if a guy like Slafkovsky can't get going, Kent Hughes will forever be known as the guy that passed on Zach Benson, who passed on Matvei Michkov, really high-end talented players. And that, unfortunately, will be enough to basically say he failed his project here. So Slafkovsky is playing okay, but at this point he needs points, and I just don't know where he's going to get them. That's the real issue. We're seeing him a lot more feisty, though, and he's a really hard guy. He's not going to lose his confidence. He's a hard guy to really bring down, but as you guys all know, eventually, after weeks and weeks of not seeing your name on the score sheet, it gets to you. So I personally believe they need to get him in a situation where he's playing 20 minutes a night, 25 minutes a night, power play, everything, and that, unfortunately, is not going to happen in the NHL.
Mark, we know what Marty St. Louis brought to the ice as a player. What are you seeing him now is in his second year, I believe, second full year as a head coach with the Montreal Canadiens?
Yeah, I like that you say second year because a lot of fans are saying, oh, no, it's the third year. Let's be honest. When you pick up mid-season, all you're doing is you're weeding, right? It's like you bought someone else's house and you're taking the weeds out. That's it. That's all. I'll say this, Dave. The guys would run through a goddamn wall for him. That's how, like, he has this ability. I don't think he's great in X's and O's. Actually, I'd say it's a weakness. But when you have a guy that went through got waivers, got basically discounted his whole career, but then he won everything, like every single award that's ever existed. You can't look at him and not say, like, damn it, I'm going to listen to what this guy says. And it's kind of a theme with the Canadiens. You have Alex Burrows, you have Trevor Latowski, you have Stefan Rabida. These are all guys that had gotten waived or really weren't given a chance and then ended up succeeding well in the NHL. So there's a common theme there. The guys just will do anything for him, and they love him, from prospects to veterans. They really do love him. He's honest, no bullshit. That being said, he's not a great tactician, and that's kind of what we're bumping up against this year. Bad power play, bad penalty kill, 5-on-5 play isn't great. However, I will say this, and this is, again, going back to what you said about his second year, this is where you want to start to see improvements. The Canadiens actually have a huge share of the high danger chances. They're doing quite well. They're getting outshot, but they're right up there with the top players, teams in the league for high danger chances. So that huge advancement for the Canadians, and that's the kind of thing that you want to see from Martin St. Louis, because he's learning on the job. But you can't get by with just good quotes your whole career. You know, we saw it with Joël Bouchard in the AHL. It's got a really limited shelf life. So he's starting to see some results from the underlying numbers. And of course, his players just love him. You know, how do you not like a guy like Martin St. Louis? He tells us in the media to go eat shit all the time. You know, it's great. Like, he defends his players. He's really just an affable character, but he's not sucking up. You know, he just knows how good he is. Or how good these players can be, and they really trust him now. But again, we're hitting up on the issue where he was elite, his players aren't, and he's kind of confused. It's kind of like when Wayne Gretzky went to coach. He's like, well, you know, just do what I did. Be the best, you know, be one of the best players. Doesn't always work like that. So I believe the Canadiens will have to bring in a tactician to kind of support St. Louis. But, you know, for now, we're seeing improvements in high danger chances, and that's very important.
You talk about the high danger chances. The Habs right now, Mark, second in the league in PDO. Is that a sign to you that you think that they're probably going, that there's sort of a correction coming, as there usually is?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I will say this, you know, when you look at their, I believe Montembeault and Primo, they have 3 goalies, which, you know, that always works out. Their numbers aren't great.
Jake, you have no number ones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And number 2, and number 3, and a number 4, right? Yeah. I love the fact that Jake Allen, everyone kind of discounted him, but, you know, until last year, he was the goalie of those 3 that has always had the best numbers. Mm-hmm. And this year, he's back on, you know, he's added 929 this year. Great. I'm very happy for him. But the Habs have had a good amount of luck so far. So as much as they're trending upward, I would say it's not silly to expect them in the bottom 5 once again this year, because just there's so many question marks, and they've been getting by on Suzuki being great in the shootout, on Jake Allen having great years, but like an Arbor Xhekaj, you know, playing well. I don't know if that's really sustainable. So when you look at the prospects coming up next year, guys like Cole Iserman or Macklin Celebrini, those are the type of players the Canadians need to put their hands on to be contenders. And the only way to do it is to finish in the bottom 5 this year. And I think there are pretty good odds that happens to the Habs.
So, Mark, last question for you. The Habs, like we said, they're off to a good start. Most people in Montreal have to be happy with 4-2-1. Yeah. You know, with young teams and teams that aren't, that don't have exceptional amounts of talent, what's often the tipping point between success and defeat for Montreal so far this season?
It's been that they've been getting kind of production from every. Well, actually, you know, believe it or not, their young defensive groups, go back to the first question, have actually been playing really well. Kaiden Guhle, out of nowhere, now that and no offense to David Savard, I love the guy, man. He's he's a good guy and whatnot, but he's an anchor on the ice. People keep saying, play him with the young guys so that he can help them. It's the other way around. It's let's be perfectly honest, this guy's always been a second or third pairing guy. Shouldn't be on that top pair. But Kaiden Guhle's been playing well. Jordan Harris has been playing well. Arbor Xhekaj has been playing well. Jonathan Kovacevic has been playing well. So Justin Barron, you know, back-to-back goals. So we're going to see the battle of the Barons tonight. Really, I would say, despite not getting as many headlines as last year, it's their defensive group, that young defensive group that's been playing so well, that's really helped them out. But again, let's not expect this to last. The Habs are going to be fun to watch, which is really important. But they're going to be bad too. So it's, as they say right now in Montreal, it's a good vibes, bad team. You know what I mean? So entertaining, but a lack of results.
Yeah, that's what they say about us as well. Good vibes, bad show. You know, there's parallels there all around. Mark.
I always love coming on with you guys, though, because, you know, honestly, the great part is that you guys do your homework too, right? Like, that's the other part. I have guys that'll come in here like, so Maurice Richard was a good player. Like, yeah, absolutely. He was a good player. So I always appreciate you guys because you have that knowledge that goes well beyond the NHL too. Because, you know, like you, I spend way too much time watching prospects in the AHL. You see, you know, Europe, this year, Switzerland. So, yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on the show. It's always a good time.
And we appreciate you making yourself available. Mark Dumont from Montreal Hockey Now. He'll cover tonight's Jets-Habs game, and you can read about it, of course, later on tonight on MontrealHockeyNow.com. Mark, thank you for this. Appreciate your time and insight. Enjoy your game day, and we'll do it again real soon.
Cheers, guys. See you next time.
There he goes.
Thanks,
Mark
Mark.
Dumont joining us this morning. Always fun to get together with Mark. Brings that great energy to the broadcast. That was he set me up with a good line for a good line there, so I had to take advantage of it. And you know how I love the self-deprecating jokes, Dave.
Of course,
you know that's my favorite thing is self-deprecating. But nonetheless, it'll be an interesting battle tonight in Montreal. The Jets and the Habs will meet against one another. It's a game that the Jets certainly want. They want to finish the 7-day period 4-0, and that's sitting there in front of them, just waiting for them to grab it. And we'll find out later tonight and talk about it on the Illegal Curve post-game show if the Jets are able to grab the proverbial brass ring. I don't know if it's a brass ring at this point in the season, but you know what I'm saying nonetheless, right?
Put on your antlers. It's time for the Minuk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
I knew Drew wasn't going to give me a Minuk Moose Minute, and I was like, I'll take.
No. I was prepared to give you one. You got. I mean, it's 1:56:52 on the clock. So there you go. There's your time frame.
I don't need a lot of time, but I will say the Moose were in Texas, Cedar Park yesterday. They had some delay of game. It wasn't a penalty. There were some technical issues yesterday in the game. So the game was slated to start at 7 p.m. Actually started at 8 p.m. because they had some on ice issues with the machinery, I believe. So that kept delaying the start time. So they pushed it back a little bit. There was only a couple of changes for the Moose. 2021 first rounder Chaz Lucius. He took a stick to the face in the win against the 8-2 win last Saturday against the Iowa Wild. So he was not in the lineup. He's day-to-day, I'm told. So he didn't play. Christian Reichel drew back in. The defense stayed the same, and Oskari Salminen got the net over Colin Delia, who played both games last week against Iowa. And this is just a short 2-game road trip for the Moose in Texas, and then they'll come back, and they're playing, I believe, Rockford to start next week. And we've already given away a bunch of the tickets for those games. I think we got 2 tickets left. If someone wants to go to this, is it next week's Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday? Regardless,
you call yourself the Moose Insider.
Well, I try to focus on the task at hand, Drew, not what's going on down the road. I'm just saying we still have 2 tickets left, but I can give those away on the post-game show.
I'm pretty sure it's Friday, Sunday, because I think the Jets play the Coyotes at home on Saturday afternoon, if I'm not mistaken.
No, they don't play them at home. They're on the road. It's an afternoon game in Arizona.
Oh, it's in Arizona? Okay. I knew they were playing Arizona. I didn't know when the hell the game was.
Now that I think about it, means I'll probably be doing the post-game show from the arena, unless it's the exact same time. Whatever. We'll figure that out. That's a story for another day. The story of today, though, is that the Moose were in Texas, found themselves down 1-0 before Wyatt Bongiovanni, who's now, remember, was dealing with a groin injury. He started training camp week. Saturday, Sunday. Okay, so he was dealing with this groin injury. He tied the game. Nice tip on the power play. And then Kyle Capobianco, actually it's Bianca. Sorry, it's not Bianco. We all were mispronouncing it last year. Got to work on our Italian. But the fact is, however you properly pronounce his name, he's on a heater. He's got 4 goals, I think, in 5 games for the Manitoba Moose. He scored again yesterday to tie the game. Again, another power play goal. That one came in the 3rd period to tie the game. 2-2 overtime, solved nothing, although it was Poppy got a little sloppy, lots of opportunities. And then in the shootout, the only guy who scored was Brad Lambert. So he got the 1 shootout goal. Oskari Salminen made all the stops, kept making all the stops, Drew. And as a result, the Moose win 3-2, improving to 3-2-0 on the season. And then we'll have a rematch with the Stars tonight in Texas. So you can listen to Daniel Fink make that call. And of course, we'll have highlights posted either on illegalcurve.com or on our Instagram. So make sure you're following along to get all the latest Moose news.
Should I do a Mindell Moose Minute tonight on the post-game show?
Please do.
Nah, it probably won't. I'll be honest.
I may or may not be jumping on from wherever I am to quickly give an update then.
Okay, fair enough. It'll be yours truly on the post-game show tonight, likely solo. So good Lord for all of us.
Oh,
it's going to be an experience and then some, but we'll be there to talk about the Winnipeg Jets and the Montreal Canadiens. Game time tonight, 6 o'clock post-game show, somewhere around 8:45 to 9 o'clock. We hope you join us back here for that fine show it shall be. That's it for this Saturday morning and the Illegal Curve Hockey Show here on our YouTube channel. A big thank you to Sarah Orleski. A big thank you to Mark Dumont. A big thank you to all of our sponsors: Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Betway, Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, Rolly's Transfer, and The Rink guys. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. Like I said, we'll be back later tonight for the post-game show, but all day long, illegalcurve.com is your destination for the latest Winnipeg Jets and Manitoba Moose news and audio from both of the game days.
You may have a co-host.
Who's that?
Spency's going to get a fancy mic today.
Okay, well, I'll keep that in mind. We don't need a fancy mic. Mark Dumont proved that when he just joined us, Spency. As long as you bring the goods with the attitude. And
Spency's doing it from the hot tub, Drew.
Okay, well, perfect. Then I see no problems whatsoever with how tonight's post-game show is going to go. Can a post-game show be off the rails 10 hours before it begins? I'm not sure if that is possible, but it might already be the case. Nonetheless, I'll be here. I hope you'll be here. Not sure who else will be here. Maybe nobody. We'll find
I may be there
on tonight. Thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great rest of your Saturday. If you haven't done so, smash the like button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave us feedback.
Hold on, Drew. Let me interject quickly.
Okay,
folks. I don't make pleas often. Actually, I do.
Yes,
constantly
actually
in the chat.
Every single show. In fact, you make pleas.
Well, not necessarily after every single show. I just ask you to do that, and I do my little writing thing. But what I do often is ask people to smash the like button, which you've already done. So I'm not going to do that. But if you can, because I think the last comment was maybe a Phyllis comment. No, it was Tracy's comment. So we need some comments on the old podcast. Let people know, because that's how, again, this is how you help the YouTube algorithm. Comments on this video are always good. But if you can, go to iTunes, give us a rating, whatever you feel like is necessary, 5. But, maybe add a comment or two if you don't mind. We appreciate that. Helps get the juices going for the podcast. We want to spread the word about the Illegal Curve Hockey Show and the Illegal Curve Postgame Show.
There you go. It'll be back later on tonight. Thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great Saturday. We'll see you later around the 8:45, 9 o'clock for the post-game show. Until then, for Dave Minuk, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow @IllegalCurve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.